It is a Thursday afternoon. I have finished up my client work for the day, and I have also just wrapped up pulling inspiration for my summer wardrobe. As much as I love creating these fanciful looks and recreating designer looks, it does leave me with quite a gap in my wardrobe of regular everyday clothes that I can wear, especially when it comes to warm weather. So our inspiration for this vlog is definitely going to be the brand Dissh. Dissh is an Australia-based fashion brand, and you can think of a lot of very comfortable silhouettes and a lot of cotton, a lot of linen, so just a lot of looks that I think will work really great for warm weather. So not only is it quite warm here in Idaho over the summer, but I'm also taking a trip to Europe, hitting a few different countries while we're over there for a wedding we are attending, and I definitely want to make sure that I have something other than a pair of jeans to pack in my suitcase. And I've actually already gotten started. These are some linen drawstring shorts that I made, and I actually used these to test a pattern hack. These are a very hacked Protea pants by Paradise Patterns. I made them into shorts. I didn't even sew up the pockets on these bad boys. I just needed to test the modifications to the front fly as well as the waistband, because the Protea pants come with a zipper situation and no elastic waistband. So let's dive in. I'm going to recreate these, but we're going to do the pant version. So even though this technically counts as my first piece, I am going to walk you through some of the modifications that I made, and I wanted to show you the inspiration for this next pair of pants. This is the Gina chocolate linen elastic waist pants, and I'm going to be making them up in a different color, but these come in at $100. Let's DIY some pants. This is the linen fabric that I'm using that I had in my stash, and I'm really hoping that I have enough of this fabric to also make a dress out of, but we'll talk about that in a little. So I've got my printed pattern pieces here. I have made this a total of 3 times if you count the shorts. So I am making up the version of the Protea pants that do not have the front pleat. There are 2 views to this pants pattern. There's one that has a pleat in the front and then one without, and we're going to be using the version without. All I am doing is pretty much following the same shape as the pattern pieces. I'm going to extend on the top a little bit to accommodate for a fold over waistband, and then I'm not going to follow the hip curve. I'm going to actually draw straight up from the hip curve because I want that gathered effect at the waistline, and the regular pants do not have that. So I'm going to cut that out and I will show you what that looks like. So here I'm adding about 4 inches to the top of the pant, and that is so I can accommodate for a fold over waistband. This is the front pattern piece, and I'm actually just going to follow this curve here. You have this extra little space here when it comes to sewing the fly front, but we're going to skip that and not pay attention to that. And then I'm going to add about, let me see what that looks like, 1.5 inches. I'm going to add 1.5 inches to the side seam, and I'm not going to follow this curve. I'm just going to come straight up, and that is so there is some fabric to be gathered around the waistline. Width here will increase the width of your pant leg, but I like wide pants, so that's fine by me. Now, since we're making modifications to the front and the back pattern pieces, they become very similar looking. And when I was sewing up these shorts, I had a really hard time figuring out which was my front and which was my back. So I'm just gonna take some chalk and I'm going to mark the inside of my pant leg, the wrong sides, and I have just marked them with an F to clearly indicate which pieces are my front pieces and which are my back pieces. And now I'm just laying out my back pattern piece, and I'm truly going to do the exact same thing. I'm not going to use the dart that's on the back of the pants. I'm still going to add about 4 inches of height. That way I have flexibility on how big of an elastic waistband I want to add. And then again, I'm adding that 1.5 inches on the side seam. I'm at my machine, and you're pretty much gonna sew up a majority of this sewing pattern the way that it was designed, but instead of sewing the zipper fly front, you're just gonna put those right sides together and sew that seam just as a straight seam. I'm going to now sew up my back pieces and assemble my side seams, and then I'll show you what I do for the waistband. This next part is why it's so important that you know which side is your front and which side is your back. And that is because we need to add 2 little buttonholes so that we have a hole for the drawstring to go through. So I've got my elastic here. This is the width that I want to use. And it's a little bit thicker. Let's see, this comes in at 1.5 inches. So I need to fold this over and check that is about where I want to sew my seam for the elastic waistband. And I'm also going to mark the top fold of the waistband. Because I didn't do a waistband where you attach it separately, it's just part of the top of the pants, because I wanted to do it that way because I felt like it. And then I just mark with a pin where I want my buttonholes to go. Try to make them evenly spaced and the same size, so that way I have a nice finished edge. So I'm going to sew those buttonholes on, then you can sew the waistband, insert the elastic, and then your drawstring is actually inserted last. Going to stitch the top band down, leaving an opening so that I have a spot to insert the elastic. Now it is time to take a piece of elastic and wrap that around my waist. And I don't want it to be too tight, but I do want it to be a little bit snug so that the pants stay up. And I'm gonna cut that. Make sure I don't get it confused. Now I'm going to use a safety pin to insert it inside that channeling. And once you have that all the way through, I'm just going to zigzag stitch over the edges of this elastic and close the opening, and then you can get to work on the drawstring. I just remembered that I had this drawstring cord in my stash, and it is just barely long enough to be tied around my waist. So I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did with the elastic, but I'm going to do it with the drawstring, and I'm going to put it through those buttonholes that I made, and I'm going to feed that all the way around. Definitely chasing the daylight here, but I think for day one, we are going to finish these pants in time. I've only been sewing for, I actually didn't even check the time, but actual sewing time is probably less than 2 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and hem these. You can follow the instructions just as the pattern is written, and then I'm gonna put these and the shorts on for you. Sorry, I'm still trying to figure out where to film everything in my new house, but these are the shorts, and I love how they turned out. They're just super casual. They're going to be perfect for the days where walk and lounge around and when it's going to be hot. I've just paired it with a tank top that I knitted that I'm actually going to have to dye because you can't see here, but I did get nail polish on it. So I do have two projects that we're going to dye a little bit later in this vlog, but there is the shorts, and let me show you the pants. Fresh off of the machine, I haven't even steamed them yet, but I think they turned out perfect, exactly what I'm looking for, and I can't even see if I'm in the frame right now, but I'll be sure to do a whole outfit roundup at the end. One tip that I do have for you is I tend to match the width of the hem to the same width of the waistband. So if I have a thicker waistband, I do put a thicker hem, a wider hem, and you'll notice on the shorts I did a skinnier waistband. So for that, I did a skinnier hem. I love the little drawstring. And again, I just skipped all the pockets because I pretty much always have a bag with me. So that is it for day one sewing. I've got two of my wanted looks, a linen pair of shorts and a linen pair of pants. So I'll see you on day two, and we're gonna work on some tops. It is day two, and as promised, we are going to be working on a top. And this next one doesn't even require a sewing pattern. It's super easy, and I'm just gonna walk you through the measurements so that you can make your own. I really liked this scarf top that they have, and this one is a silk scarf, and it comes in at $140, and it can be styled multiple ways. It's definitely not specific to this brand. Everyone is using silk scarves to tie in different ways as tops, but what I do feel like is important is the size of the scarf that you are using. I had some duvet covers come in the mail. You can't tell on camera how pink this fabric is, but it's not very flattering, and the duvets looked awful in my room. So I'm also trying to turn that into a handful of sewing projects. So I already did a little bit of test using those duvet covers, and I'm going to dye this a darker brown a little later after I get the materials that I need for that, but I always use Rit dye to dye my projects. Honestly, you're kind of just making a giant napkin, and this can double as a top or just to put around your shoulders to protect you from the sun. And I do think it's big enough to wear kind of as a beach cover up as well. You can learn a lot about a product from reading the product description. So reading about the fabrication, as we mentioned, it's 100% silk, non-sheer, and a non-stretch fabrication. But looking in the fit notes at the garment measurements, it's 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters. So you can follow that size. You're literally just cutting out a square plus some seam allowance so that you can finish the edges. But it is really important that you are working with a square. Otherwise, when you go to fold the top in to create that triangle and you tie it around your body, you definitely want that to be symmetrical. This fabric is so beautiful, but it also has a wrong side, and I really like the wrong side as well. So one is flat and one is kind of that satiny, shimmery look. Very pretty. And clearly I have a blue theme going on. This is my latest sewing pattern, the Dione, and I'll probably talk about that in a little bit, but this one is coming with me as well. I did make it in pink, but I think I want to wear the blue. So let's get to cutting out our square. Now that I have my large square all cut out, you are not going to want to skip this next step, and that is using your iron to press your hem before you start sewing. You really want to take the time to press this hem because it is visible when you are wearing the garment. It doesn't get tucked into anything. And you're just going to repeat that for the other 3 raw edges. I like to sew opposite sides first is because I find it easier to sew a flat corner when you already have one of the raw edges completely tucked in. So let's try it on. There's your reminder of the original And here is the one that I turned out with, and you truly just tie it in a knot in the back. Keep in mind that the thicker your fabric is, the thicker the knot is going to be in the back. But I have been seeing this hack where you tie it with a ring around the neck, so I'm gonna go try that real quick. And here's what that looks like when you use the ring to tie the top. So cute. You need a ring, and you're going to fold your square into a triangle, and the folded edge is going to be the bottom of the top. So you'll take the top and you'll feed it through the ring, and these two corners become the tie to tie around your neck, and then you just take these two corners, then you take these ends and you tie them around your back. Super easy. Keep in mind though that the thicker your fabric is, the harder it is to do this hack. I don't know if you can tell, but this duvet fabric is really thin, which means I have to be really careful with my project selection because I don't want to pick a project where the fabric requires a little bit more structure. It's going to have to be something drapey. So I think we're gonna go for, wow, my forehead looks really big when I get that close. So I'm gonna try to recreate this skirt, and I picked this one because of how sheer and thin the fabric looks, but again, I'm probably gonna dye it brown because I hate the color of this fabric. And it's so close to my skin tone that I think I would probably just kind of look naked. You can see there's kind of a thicker hem there, but this fabric is sheer and my fabric is not, so I'm not gonna worry about that. So I'm just going to cut out two rectangles, one for the front, one for the back. We're gonna keep this super simple. Again, I'm not going to include pockets because this fabric is so thin and I don't even think it could handle really holding anything in the pocket. I think it would drag the skirt down. I'm going to cut two rectangles, and I think I'm gonna make them each about 37 inches wide, and I think that'll give me some nice gathered effect without cutting a true circle skirt. 55 inches long. So I'm gonna do 37 by 55, and 55 should give me enough to make a casing for a drawstring and an elastic waistband, as well as hemming the skirt. All right, so this is about, I don't remember what I said, 37, 38 inches wide and 55 long. And I worked smarter, not harder. I kept the side seam from the duvet because those seams are tucked in on the inside, so it doesn't really matter. But this is going to work actually very similar to how we did the top of the Protea pants. So you want to sew up your side seams, and then you're going to finish the top edge and fold it over and insert some elastic. So again, super simple. There are other DIY tutorials out there if you want to get fancy and insert pockets, but we are working smarter, not harder, and I'm not going to include things that at the end of the day I'm not going to use. Got the top of the skirt laid over and pinned large enough to fit my elastic in, and I'm not going to make you watch this again because it's truly the exact same thing that we did with the pants and the shorts. Then I'm going to use a safety pin to insert the elastic and close up the waistband. Well, everybody, I made a mistake. I don't know where I got 52 inches in length. That was absolutely way too long. I think in my head I meant to prepare for a total length of 42 inches after I put in the waistband, so that way I had about 2 inches to do a hem on the skirt. So 52 inches was way, way, way too long for me. I'm almost 5'7". So now that the waistband is sewn onto the skirt, I cut it down to 42 inches. I'm going to use my serger to finish the raw edge again, and then I'm going to hem the skirt total length down to 40 inches. This is a real trust the process moment because I haven't dyed the color of this skirt yet. It's still this hideous heathered pink flesh tone, but I think you can see the vision here. Now, you can tell that the hem of this skirt is not near as swishy as the original one, and that is because I cut a really wide rectangle instead of a circle skirt. If you want it to look more like the original, you're definitely gonna wanna cut a circle skirt. I didn't do that. 1, for time, 2, it's a lot easier to hem, and 3, I just didn't have enough fabric. That's how this one turned out. You still get some twirlability and the nice gathered waist. And again, once it's a different color, I haven't even pressed this thing. Once it's a prettier color, I think it'll look better. Trust the process, right? So that is 2 more projects down for today. I think I'm gonna take a break now. I feel like I want to do some pattern research, figure out what else I can make with the fabric that I have. I need to pause, do some research, and we'll be back with more options on day 3. All right, welcome back. It is day 3. We're gonna be tackling at least 2 projects today. I really wanted to add in a mini dress that I could toss on and go, and I really loved the way that this A-line dress looks. This one is made out of a cotton poplin, so it's a little bit more stiff than the linen that I have selected for this project, but either way, I still think it'll be super cute. And I'm going to be using the Alma Dress. And I'm not really sure how to pronounce the Etsy shop, but this is the creator on Instagram, Fiona Kristen. This pattern is designed for something that is definitely a heavier weight. She recommends denim, maybe even a leather. So I am going to sew it up with some linen. I've already got everything cut out, and I did interface the top portions of this dress. I also custom made 10 yards of bias tape to finish the neckline and the armholes, just so that everything looks nice and professional. So let's get to sewing. I just finished sewing up the Alma dress, and at this point I would typically try it on for you guys, but I only have one more sewing pattern that I'm going to work on for this vlog, so we're going to save this to the end, but I do think it turned out perfectly for summer, and I think it'll be super cute on. But we have one more shirt to make. This is the Shayla top by Dissh, and you can tell it kind of has this asymmetrical off the shoulder vibe, even though it's styled to be on both shoulders here, but I really liked the vibe of that. And I came across a new sewing pattern that is called the Asymmetrical Top Sewing Pattern by Haley Ivers. And you can see what that one looks like there. This one comes in at $8, and it actually is just instructions on how to draft this pattern for yourself and then how to sew it up. So I figured for $8 I would give it a try and see how that turned out. I am making it out of the same dark green linen that I used for the shorts, so I'll have a little bit of a set moment if I want to, or it'll pair perfectly with the other pair of pants that I made. So it's a really simple sewing pattern. So I think I'm just going to sew this up real quick and show you guys what it looks like. I cannot tell you how cute this little top is, and you would never know just from looking right at it. I felt like I couldn't show you very much of the sewing process of this one because that would give too much away, and I want to be respectful of the pattern designer that I purchased this one from. So I think that's going to wrap up the actual sewing for now. So that leaves the maxi skirt and the extra scarf top that I make that needs to be dyed. Okay, so that was a lot of work. I've got both of those dye projects in the wash. So when I come back, I'll be styling the looks that I made throughout this whole vlog and kind of recapping everything and giving you my final thoughts on each DIY project or sewing pattern that I used. See you in a minute. I have 6 pieces here all completed, so let's see how many looks we can put together. I would absolutely make the Alma dress again, and I would definitely make it in a little bit of a stiffer fabric, but I really do like all the different top stitching details, and it is just what I was looking for to add into my wardrobe for this summer. I cannot tell you how much time I spent trying to get these two pieces pressed. So they do look a little messy together in my opinion, but they were both such easy DIY projects and I do think they look really cute as a set. They just need some better ironing, so I don't know what exactly I need to do about that. Maybe some wrinkle release? I don't know. I of course love these pants and I think I will get the most amount of wear out of it. I love how the scarf tie top pairs with it in brown, but as well as blue. I do wish this blue fabric was a little bit thinner. It is a little bit difficult to tie, but I just love the color so much, it doesn't even matter to me. I am obsessed with the asymmetrical tie top. I also think this pairs so well with the pants that I made, and I can just tell I'm gonna get a lot of wear out of this, and I absolutely need to make it in more colors. And I also love how it pairs with these shorts. I think this can be very easily dressed up, dressed down, depending on the shoes that you wear, but it turned out great. I just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I don't know how well this would work for those of you who have a larger bust measurement, just based off of what I noticed when I was sewing the sewing pattern. It is a pattern where you draft your own pieces based off of a shoulder measurement, so there's no mention of anything by way of a dart or how to accommodate for that larger bust. So I just want to give that disclaimer that you may have to make modifications if you choose to sew this and you do have a larger cup size. I really hope you all enjoyed this one. I tried to include a few DIY projects as well as some sewing patterns so that you could feel empowered to work on your own summer capsule wardrobe. As always, I will see you in the next one.